Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing my beloved green-black Turbodepths. This is a deck I play on the channel a lot, and I have a lot of dedicated content to this on my Patreon, which is linked in the description below, including a guide that is over 50 pages long and a sideboarding matrix for the build that I currently think is best. We're not playing the build I currently think is best because we're trying out some Leylines of the Void in the sideboard. I haven't done enough testing to see if this is where I want to be, but the main deck is still the same. So what does this deck do? Well, Dark Depths makes a 20/20 creature when it has no counters on it. We can either pay 30 mana to remove counters, 3 mana at a time, or we can make a copy of it that doesn't have counters and just get a 20/20, or we can strip all the counters off for 2 mana. The way we make this work is by having Crop Rotation and Sylvan Scrying, both of which can search lands either into play or into our hand, and then we can get our combo set up. We also have Once Upon a Time, which can dig a little bit and maybe string together the right selection of cards to make us go early. We've got a bunch of fast mana in Lotus Petals and Elvish Spirit Guide to power it out. We have Hand Disruption in Thoughtseize and Inquisition to keep us alive or get rid of the things that will remove our 20/20. And we've got protection from Wasteland and Caracas and such from Pithing Needle, and Not of This World can protect us from all sorts of Caracas-y, Swords to Plowshares-y type removal. We've got a few little silver bullets in the land, things like Bojuka Bog. There's a lot of graveyard decks running around. Boseiju, which we can tutor to our hand with the Sylvan Scrying and then blow up things like Ensnaring Bridge. We've got ourselves a Ghost Quarter because we're going to be naming Wasteland with our Pithing Needle. Sometimes we need to blow up our opponent's land, and this is another way we can do that. And Sejiri Steppe to protect our creature. Sideboard-wise today, we have a similar sideboard to what we've normally had, but I've replaced the 3 Fairy Macabre that we were playing last time with 3 Leyline of the Void, and we trimmed down on Collector Ouphe. Because we have the 3 Once Upon a Time, we can dig for the Collector Ouphe a little bit anyway. So why do I want to play Leyline of the Void? Lately, I've been getting leagues where I'm just playing into 5 combo decks, and there's things like Dredge and Ouphe spells ticking up in the meta right now, and we just want a big card that says no. Now this card is strictly worse against blue-black Reanimator than something like a Fairy Macabre. Because Fairy Macabre, they don't see it coming, so they actually spend the resources and you get them, and it can't be countered. There are some upsides to this card though. This card can't be discarded from your hand, which is important, but also in the blue-black Reanimator matchup, we're still trying to clock our opponent relatively quickly, so if they're spending their turn 2 or 3 to Brazen Borrower our Leyline of the Void out of play, maybe that's enough time for us to get over the hump anyway. So we're going to see how this feels today, but we're mainly having this for the Ouphe spells, which is currently the 2nd most popular deck among challenge top 8s. So definitely a thing to watch out for. Other tools we have a little bit more Hand Disruption. We have another Boseiju so we can blow up some annoying artifacts and enchantments, and also lands that can blow up or Caracas as well. We've got the Abrupt Decays for our opposition agents, Mages of the Moon, all that sort of jazz. Sylvan Safekeeper for more protection, same with Not of This World, and 2 Collector Ouphe. We're not playing Defend the Rider today. I haven't been seeing that much like Dimir mid-range. It's just been lots and lots of combo-y stuff. So I just want to have the stuff that is lower to the ground for protection, like these things. Because these things don't cost you mana on your go turn, whereas Defend the Rider does, but it can protect you from an edict. Alright, that's the list. Remember to like and subscribe if you're watching this, and why not check out the Patreon if this deck is something that interests you. Alright, let's make some 20/20 goodness. So this opening hand doesn't have access to a Dark Depths or the ability to make a 20/20 at all, so this is a pretty easy mulligan. What does this hand do? We have access to our combo, but it's very slow. So this is turn 2, we Sylvan Scrying, turn 3 we Sylvan Scrying, turn 4. That's just too slow. We can do faster. We have this, we have this. We just need access to green mana here, and then we're good to go. So I will keep this. We probably need to be able to have a land sacrifice. It's something to consider. We've got to put 2 cards back though, so it's probably this and the Ghost Quarter. Then we can play around the Wasteland from our opponent. We can't really afford to get Wastelanded here, so I will just play out the Pithing Needle on 1, and then we'll try and Thoughtseize on 2. The reason I threw away the Ghost Quarter is because we're going to need a green source anyway, and a lot of that is going to be lands, so we have this. Getting rid of the Ghost Quarter is obviously worse against if we're not drawing a land and we draw something like a Lotus Petal or a Elvish Spirit Guide. But we have a lot of lands in our deck. Or we got a reasonable amount of them. I spent a while thinking about that. Let's name the Wasteland. And I think having a piece of Hand Disruption and a thing that makes sure we don't get Wastelanded, because Wasteland is the easiest way that our hand gets collapsed here. So I think I like the choice we made. So what sort of deck are we looking at here? So this could be Sneak and Show, which I kind of feel is going to be more likely because lots of people are on this trying to play it with stock up at the moment. But statistically, it's more likely to be Blue-Red Delver. I've just been seeing a big increase in Show and Tell decks the last week. They didn't shuffle the ponder, so they might be floating something on top. Okay, so we can go now if we want to, or we can Thoughtseize first. I think the plan here is to Thoughtseize first. We're Thoughtseizing a round of days. I just want to see what our opponent's up to. Okay, so we got a daze, a force of will. So it's clearly the force of will that we have to take here, because that's just a hard answer for our crop rotation, whereas we can play around the days. The other option there is to take the days. No, yeah, we don't have another option, right? Because if we take the days, they still have a blue card in the third path Iconoclast. So I expect our opponent is going to tap out for probably the third path Iconoclast. That's the one that does the most damage at this moment in time. But it looks like our opponent wants to play some relatively fair magic, which is cool. We can thrive relatively well into this, depending on how dense their Swords to Plowshares count is, which is probably going to be quite dense, but they don't have any right now, and that's all that matters. So a land here is pretty solid. Not a land. Okay, I think we get the Bayou here. And I'm going to cast this Once Upon a Time, because we haven't played a land yet this turn. I suspect this is getting dazed, and that's fine. That just gets the daze out of their hand, so these are easier to work on next turn. Yeah. So this is a bait spell. If our opponent's more on the aggressive slant rather than trying to cantrip and control the game, then that might be better for us than some Jeskai coloured decks would be. There is an Ajani. When this flips, they're going to have the red permanent in the third path Iconoclast. But we're on a pretty real clock here. So we probably fire off this crop rotation in the upkeep, because that way we know if our opponent's going to Force of Will or not. And they're going to have one less card. Wouldn't mind finding another piece of mana here. Didn't find a piece of mana. Okay. The window is kind of closing for us. Do I think our opponent has a Wasteland here? They would have to have Wasteland and Prismatic Ending, and you can always make it in response to the Prismatic Ending. I don't think they're going to have any instant speed ways of getting rid of the Pithing Needle. So I think we're just holding here. A Ponder. I don't believe our opponent's going to have Stifle in their deck. I'm not going to respect the Stifle unless we see it. They shuffled their library. That suggests to me they didn't have the answer immediately. They could scoop. Or they could let us play into them. Now, they might have just drawn a plow. I suspect they didn't have one at the start of that turn. Maybe they have a main deck consigned to memory, and that's what they're thinking about and trying to check if it works. It doesn't work on this, because this is an activated ability. And this is a trigger that goes on the stack as long as the trigger is not already on the stack. And then as soon as you remove the trigger from the stack, it puts itself back on again. So this will always just re-trigger. You can use consigned to memory to save your own Dark Depths from a Wasteland in a weird way. So if the trigger is on the stack and your opponent Wastelands it, in response you can counter your own trigger, then it goes on top above the Wasteland, and then you still get your 20/20. It's a state-based effect trigger that checks. Right, sending in some friends, perhaps. I'm not going to block the cat, so we're probably just blocking a Soldier Token here. If they had a plow, they would attack with everything here. Or at least attack with more stuff than this, I think. Now let's just first strike down one of these creatures. So we're not going to make our 20/20 because we don't want to get Prismatic Ending, if that's what they have. A Volcanic Island. So Brazen Borrower is an option. So they're playing this Ajani. What does the flip side do? Equals the number of creatures they control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's not enough to kill me, right? It gets 7 because it makes a guy first. So we should be okay here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Going to the dome. Okay. Can I have my 20/20, please? They got white card Solitude. That would be pretty solid here. Right, to the sideboard. So they're probably going to have some plows. So I would like access to these Sylvan Safekeepers and this Not of This World. I don't know if they have room for Wastelands. But I think we have to assume that they're going to be in our opponent's deck somewhere. We do not need a Bojuka Bog for a matchup that looks like this. That gives us the fourth Not of This World. Then we have to decide what we're doing with these Safekeepers. Safekeepers are found by the Once Upon a Time, so I like having these. We probably need to keep hold of like Thoughtseizes and Inquisitions. We haven't seen Wastelands. Can our opponent's deck support Wasteland? There is an argument for playing something like an Abrupt Decay here. I don't know if our opponent is running the Harbinger, but we should be able to come in underneath that. We haven't seen the Wastelands. Maybe we'll swap out a couple of Needles for now. I will keep this. This is a turn 3, potentially a turn 2, if we have another piece of fast mana. And these are, and it's uncounterable as well. Let's play this Thespian stage out. Let's play out this Lotus Petal. This gives us the ability to play around a Daze if we need to. Because if they decide to Daze this Pithing Needle, it means they have a Wasteland. Okay, so we just need access to one piece of fast mana and we can go. And it'll be uncounterable. And our opponent just has to hold up removal the whole time. But they will have a creature in play for when they're holding up the removal. Okay, so we didn't draw that. So what are we doing instead? I think we're just playing out this Bayou. And just keeping this crop rotation in case something weird happens and we need it. But next time we're just going to play this Depths. And hopefully have a lovely time with it. They do have Wastelands. They've got a Ajani over there. This is their white mana source tapped as well. We don't want to just send it into what our opponent has. Like, they could have a Prismatic Ending here. We have many, many Dark Depths though. We'll see what our opponent does and we'll see if we need to make a token or not. A Brainstorm. Sure. We want to see that white mana source tapped. If not, we can always wait one turn and have crop rotation backup. Now that will lose to Daze and a piece of removal. We can cover one of the things our opponent does. Alright, so we're going to have access to 2 different white sources here. Okay, no, they've gone for a Volcanic Island. So they're probably pretty red heavy. What is this? A Murktide Regent. Okay. They've already played their land for turn. I don't think they attack. Okay, they're attacking because they know we don't want to block this. That makes sense. So then we activate targeting this. We keep the correct one. And then we try with a crop rotation, I suppose. We have 2 crop rotations now, so I think we're probably locked in to win this game. This gets countered, I suspect. And then we just fire the other one off. A Force of Will. Pitching a Daze. We lose to another Daze here. Got Daze? Alright, we've got the GGs in chat. I really like the look of our opponent's deck. I think people have been really trying to work out how to use Ajani, and it hasn't looked that impressive to me a lot of the times, but I think what our opponent's doing here makes a lot of sense. They're smashing out a load of creatures. They've got a good base for casting Force of Wills. I like Third Path Iconoclast quite a lot as well. Yeah, 1-0. Let's go to round 2. On the play for round 2, our hand gets us where we need to be at some point. I will keep this. We have both halves of our combo. We can Sylvan Scrying looking for a Thoughtseize, so we can go Thoughtseize. Sorry, looking for an Urborg, so we can go Urborg, Thoughtseize. Turn 2, play a stage. Turn 3, Dark Depths, and go. We found the Urborg. We also found a Hexmage, but I think it's just the Urborg. We'll deploy it. We'll take one of our opponent's 6 cards from their hand. Okay, so we're on Mono Red Storm. I see. I think it's probably the only ritual that's got to go here. I think it's just the Seething Song. Okay, so we don't have to worry about counter magic. But we do have to worry about our opponent's clock. An Inquisition of Kozilek is obviously a card that I'm very happy to see here. An Elemental Eruption is cool. Do you want to take... The Mana Morphose gives them Storm. I think it's the Morphose here. We just need to stop them from leveraging the cards they get. So this turn, they maybe, best case scenario, they play a Ruby Medallion for them. Just a Reckless Impulse. What does this find them? A Mountain and a Rite of Flame. I don't think they're going to be quick enough here. This is a Storm deck that we don't have that many cards against, which is awkward. Right, so they're playing the Mountain. They're going to play this Rite of Flame as well. Do they play the Ren's Resolve first? I guess it doesn't really matter if they're always playing this Rite of Flame anyway. So they Ren's Resolve here with 2 mana up. They've got a Mana Morphose and a Seething Song. So from the information that we currently have, they can't put the Seething Song on the stack. We also do beat Elemental Eruption because we can use this to get to Sylvan Scrying for Sejiri Steppe, give our creature pro red and attack. There is a new dragon in the next Tarkir set that is basically this, but on a creature, which is pretty cool, and it pumps all your dragons instead of having prowess. Alright, so we managed to get the first game there, but now things get a lot more difficult. So Duress is good here. Not of This World does not look very hot. I'm interested in having a Boseiju. I'm interested in the Abrupt Decays. Actually, am I probably interested in Abrupt Decays over the Boseiju here? The Pithing Needle can name Ral, whatever the backside of Ral is called. Which I should probably look up before this game starts. Ral Leyline Prodigy is the backside. Okay, so this can name that, which is okay. Would I rather have... I would rather have an Abrupt Decay because we can just kill it, or we can blow up their medallions. I think that also means that the Boseiju is better. So we could have a Bojuka Bog in case they do a Past in Flames line. So that's probably better than a Pithing Needle here. Do you want this Pithing Needle at all? We could just have a one of Leyline of the Void or something. I don't really want to draw this Leyline of the Void at any point though. I guess it's probably just a Pithing Needle name in the backside of Ral. I suspect our opponent wins the game they're on the play, and then the last game is going to be a bit of a coin flip. Okay, I like this. We have access to a turn 3 combo with a piece of hand disruption. We do have this Once Upon a Time, which can find us things like the Elvish Spirit Guide looks really good here, because that gives us turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Abrupt Decay, turn 3 combo. Our opponent's kept 7 though, and they are sort of like a critical mass combo deck. Right, they do have Lotus Petals. Some of these builds don't. We're going to see Burgi. Burgi is pretty solid here. If they play a Burgi and we have the option of Abrupt Decaying on turn 1, we probably have to take it. This could be a Seething Song and they're just going to go big right now. If that's the case, then so be it. We do not win. Jeska's Will. That is a lot of manas, isn't it? So we could... So they're going to get 7 mana. I could make it 1 less by doing this and failing to find. I don't think I like the sound of that. I don't think there's a marked difference between 7 and 6 mana at this point. Bonus round. Okay, so now we get to double Once Upon a Time here, because this affects both players. It's very rare you see the turn 1 kill from the old mono red Storm. That is the reason to play the Lotus Petals though. It does help you out. So they're going to have all the mana in the world here. And they still have 1 mana left over before that, so our pitching this for no value clearly doesn't make a difference. So Ren's Resolve gets them another Ren's Resolve. And at some point they flip the Ral, and then they get to play a bunch of spells for free. They have an Elemental Eruption over there. Storm Counter is going to be very, very lethal here. What are we supposed to do about this? I don't believe our opponent can fail from here. I'm just going to scoop it up and save our time. They've shown us enough cards there. So on the play, we're just going to try and do the thing. So the Bojuka Bog isn't obviously great here, but there might be a situation where they're all in on a Past in Flames. And then maybe we get them and we can cheese them with a crop rotation. I think that thing that will happen in probably maybe 5% of games, it's worth boarding in just for that because we have so many dead cards. Okay, this is quite slow unless we find... This could be a turn 2 if this finds a Spirit Guide. I'm willing to keep this. We've got 7 pieces of hand. I think I'm willing to keep this, and we're just going to take our lumps if it doesn't work out for us. Okay, so we didn't find the thing I wanted. That is awkward. I'll take a Boseiju. I'll play out a Thespian Stage. I'll play out this Lotus Petal. So we have access to the crop rotation. We're also still live to draw a Spirit Guide next turn, or a Lotus Petal, and then we can go on turn 2. Come on, deck. Help me out. Okay. Now, this is a fine card to draw. So, if we get this and go get a Bayou, we get to Inquisition now. Ral Monsoon Mage, Manamorphose. Elemental Eruption over there. We don't really want that happening. Bonus round is definitely one of the engines that gets them where they need to go, though. But they need the mana to get there. What does this guy do on the backside? Deals 2 damage, draw a card. Okay. Why are we stuck with this being a massive window? Right, let's get rid of this bonus round, I think. So next turn, we just have the combo here. So the other option we had that turn... Actually, we didn't really have any other options that turn that were as good as that. Right, so there is the Monsoon Mage. What have we got for us, deck? We have the combo here. Let's see what our opponent does. So we can blow this up if we need to. It will take a turn off our clock because we have to wait till the next turn to do it. Okay, so this is a Manamorphose. I don't believe they're going to flip this. So taking the Ral with our Inquisition is also an option on the last turn, because then all their spells cost more. Alright. Let's see what the Reckless Impulse is doing to us. 2 mountains. Alright, a swing and a miss from our opponents. That's what we want to see. A Manamorphose here. We can beat the Elemental Eruption as well. So if they just go all out and play this Elemental Eruption, we have Sejiri Steppe, we push through. We let the Sejiri Steppe in, which is not something I do against all Storm decks for obvious reasons. A Burning Wish. Okay. What have they found here? Am I going to wish we took this with the Inquisition? Inspired Tinkering. I am regretting not taking this Ral now. What do they have over here? If it's just the Elemental Eruption, then we're cool. If that is their win condition, it's if they get to like grape shot us to death is the problem. They're losing a lot of flips to this Ral. They have a Burning Wish. But they're kind of out of mana here. Don't think they're going anywhere with what I'm seeing here. Because they can Burning Wish. If they flip the Ral Monsoon Mage, then we can blow it up. Wait, we don't know actually if they're going to win the flip before it happens. So maybe they just have to flip and hope it goes well. But we do get a chance to kill this in response, because the Burning Wish is still on the stack. So if you're unfamiliar with the backside of this, it does like a little Mind's Desire. Give them the top 8 cards of their library. I don't think we can allow them to have the top 8 cards of their library. Really wish we took this round Monsoon Sage now instead of the bonus round. So next turn they get all these cards, but those cards don't do anything next turn. So what is the play here? We can blow these two things. We can blow these two to kill this. Or we can turn this into an Urborg and then blow this. I guess we just blow this up now. I guess we don't have to give up our Lotus Petal if we turn this into an Urborg. But then we don't have a green source for next turn if we want to Boseiju something. Is there anything we want to Boseiju next turn? We might want to do something with our mana. Alright, I'm going to Abrupt Decay this. Definitely think we should have taken the Ral. I didn't want him to have more like source and more cards, which is why I took the bonus round, because I knew we could beat the Elemental Eruption. But now we've kind of put ourselves in a space where our opponent is doing alright over there. How long can these Inspired Tinkering cards? Until the end of your next turn. So yeah, they will have all of these for next turn. Now, there's a lot of redundancy between the Ral and the Ruby Medallion. They can go Ruby Medallion, play the Ral for 1 mana. 3, 4, 5, and then they can do that. Okay, so now there's a Path and Flames line that we can actually blow out. That's very exciting to me. So, how do we go about blowing them out the most effective way possible here? So this has to go get the Bojuka Bog if we want to do that. So that's that mana spoken for. How are we getting from this position to making a 20/20 this turn? I don't think we are. So if we play the Ghost Quarter out, I guess that becomes our land that we Ghost Quarter away. Alright. So this is the land we Crop Rotate away. There is a mountain. There is a Ruby Medallion. There is a Ral Monsoon Mage. There is a Seething Song. Pretty good. If they just make some guys here, that's fine. If they go through the graveyard, then we do graveyard stuff. So what does this do? 2 damage, divide as you choose, draw a card. If you control a blue opponent, which they won't. Okay. If they got 5 mana here, are they just going to fire off this Elemental Eruption? So they could play the Ral and then the Elemental Eruption. Or they could go really greedy here and go for a Path and Flames line. So if they go for the Path and Flames line here, they're just going to have all the mana in the world. Right? Because they're just going to absolutely pop off here. We could wait for this to resolve, and then we get 2 copies of our Crop Rotation. So I imagine the first thing they cast is the bonus round. So as soon as the bonus round resolves, they put something else on the stack. The issue is these are all instants, so they can just go... well, they're not all instants, I guess. There's a lot of sorceries in there. But they'll have 2 copies of all of those. So if we nail this, they're going to be able to just storm off here, right? They're just going to have enough to make an Elemental Eruption. And we can't beat the Elemental Eruption right now because we need to make our guy. So we have to let the Path and Flames resolve. That is awkward. Because otherwise we just lose to all their Elemental Eruption tokens. So casting the Seething Song first. Yeah, not much can be done about that one. I think my record against the mono-red Storm decks is pretty poor with this deck, unfortunately. Here is the bonus round. So when they put their next spell on the stack, we get 2 crop rotations when we just play 1. And that gives us enough to make a 20/20 and remove the other cards from our opponent's graveyard. Which might not be enough, but we'll see. So what we want to do here is float some mana. We will crop rotate. This goes quarter away. So we get our bonus round to trigger. Right, so they're going to play the Manamorphose over the top before it goes away. This will also give them... is there anything else? Inspired Tinkering is sorcery. Yeah, okay. So they get 1 Manamorphose more. But we get to shut down the Inspired Tinkering and all the card advantage over there. They get back this Row, which can now just dump a bunch of cards. So they get their bonus round first. So we go and get a Bojuka Bog with the first one. We strip out their graveyard. And then this one finds us an Urborg. And this gives us access to our combo. And then we just hope our opponent makes a bunch of dragons. And then we get to Sylvan Scrying for Sejiri Steppe. Now they're going to be able to rip 8 cards off the top with this Row, the Leyline Prodigy. I think our opponent is odds on to win this game for sure. They've got loads of mana. They've got a bunch of cards here. Where do these cards go? Into the exile zone. Just because they have a Burning Wish. They probably have route to a kill condition that we can't really interact with. We don't really need to see these cards. Right, they're casting an Elemental Eruption with a bonus round. Many, many dragons. Sure. It's interesting that they're doing it this way round. I suspect our opponent has some weird way of killing, like, what's that card called? Soul Furnace, Soul Fire. There's a card where you sacrifice all your stuff and deal that much damage. It's like a Super Fling. And that could work here. Or they could have something that gives their guys haste. And then we're definitely not beating that. Just keep making loads of dragons and then pass in the turn. That's all I need you to do, opponent. Just give me a turn. Ruby Medallion. They have a lot of power in play. They're what, 60 power so far? And every spell they play increases it by 12. Burning Wish. So they get 2 Burning Wishes here because of bonus round. Fiery Confluence. So that does 6 damage. So it will do 12 damage when doubled. And Grape Shot. So this should be lethal and we just die to this. Alright, GG's opponent. Yeah, a tough matchup for sure. The fact that our opponent killed us on turn 1 in one of the games, which is very unusual for mono red, was not ideal, obviously. Okay, let's go to round 3. Right, our opener doesn't actually make a 20/20 here, so we're going to mulligan this one. This does get us to a 20/20 because we have 2 tutors. So I will keep this and put on one of the Once Upon a Times. Not a card you particularly want in multiples, so quite an easy one to put back. Right, Once Upon a Time. Not a bad way to start off a game. Quite like the Hexmage here, actually. So I'll crack with that. So this speeds up our clock considerably. So we can deploy this Urborg and this Pithing Needle, and we can name Wasteland. And next turn, if our opponent isn't playing counter magic, we can just crop rotate for Dark Depths and make our guy. Force of Will. Okay. They really want to have the ability to Wasteland us. Flooded Strand. Thoughtseize. Alright, so we're almost certainly going to lose the crop rotation here. There's no way we can sequence it with the Pithing Needle first. And then the Once Upon a Time. Because they get to see the Vampire Hexmage and know what we're all about them. Okay. I think we have to get a basic... Is that true? No, we have to get a Bayou here. We suspect they have a Wasteland. Where are they going to point it? If they point it at the Urborg, then it stops us getting Vampire Hexmage for ages if we just get a Forest. If they point at the green source, then we have a Vampire Hexmage at the very least. And we only have 1 green spell that they're about to try and cast anyway. We're here for a good time, not a long time. This does play into days and stuff, but we don't actually need this to resolve, so we kind of want our opponent to spend resources on this. The fact they pitched a Brainstorm on turn 1 is a lot, because that card obviously does many, many things and can find whatever tools you require. So either means they already have the tools, or that was kind of what they had to do to counter the spell. I would like to get a Thespian's Stage, I think. So next turn... Okay, they're just going to snap off a Wasteland here. They are. Okay. How many Wastelands does our opponent have? If they are the Reanimator deck, they might only have 3 in the main. Whereas if they are like a Tempo deck, then they're going to have more. We haven't seen any cards that aren't in both of those decks yet. A Thoughtseize. Alright, so we'll play this one out first. and then we'll have a look at what our opponent's up to. Show me your wares. A Daze and a Murktide Regent. I don't care about the Daze. The Murktide Regent is annoying. I care about the Wasteland quite a bit. We're just going to take this Murktide Regent. If our opponent doesn't have a clock, they've also shown us what they're playing. They're playing their tempo-y build. Are they going to... They're going to go for our green source, sure, which is also our black source. But we have our combo pieces. We just need mana, and there's lots of that in our deck. Am I playing this out? I think so, because this means if we draw an Urborg, we're good. It's horrible if they have another Wasteland, but we've seen their hand. They don't have that. Right now, at least. They don't have anything going on. They're keeping a swamp in hand. Oh no, they're playing out. So they can hard cast the Daze, if they so wish. A Ghost Quarter. Intriguing. Would love to draw an Urborg, obviously, but any land here is good and probably beats them. An Elvish Spirit Guide. That does beat them. So if our opponent plays a Wasteland and doesn't fire it off, that is really bad for us. But I would like to play around a Borrower. We've already seen a lot of Wastelands, so there's more chance of the Borrower being the thing they have. Right, we've got a Brainstorm into Fetchland, into Surveil. All that selection. Beautiful stuff. Okay, Force of Will is gone. I don't feel that the game is about that. They were very eager to cast something and then went back. Oh, Baleful Strix. Don't like that one. A Ponder. So we have to make a decision whether or not we're just ramming into this. Okay, they shuffled their Ponder. That means I think we probably are just ramming into this and trying to get through it over 2 turns. This also leaves us open to draw a Sejiri Steppe and just win. Okay, this is useful against Borrower, obviously. So, let's see. We're going to keep this because we know they have a Daze, so we're playing around the Daze with our Not of This World. They might have shuffled this back, but considering how few lands we have, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept. It's a Borrower. Let's say no to this one. They binned a Force, but they had another one. Pitching a Murktide. Okay. So we lose our little thing, and now we're kind of in a bad spot. Our opponent had to have quite a lot of very specific things for this game to pan out this way, but their deck obviously has the selection to try and knit those things together. I think this list is probably worse for us than the Reanimator. Like, I have a solid win rate against the Reanimator deck, but my win rate against this is pretty coin flippy. You can Thoughtseize me. Would you like to take? They might just take the Thoughtseize here. Nope, they took one of the Hexmages, so they might be able to work their way through them. They haven't got any cards left in hand. A Dark Depths. We will play this out. We're just an Urborg away. Urborg is obviously great though, because we get to Thoughtseize and then do it. Kaito. Now that is a little bit of a scary card. So this gives them card advantage, selection, lots of damage, the ability to freeze our guy if we have to make it around a Wasteland, which means we don't get to play around Wasteland anymore. There is a Wasteland. Delightful. There is a Crop Rotation. That's not the one. I think our opponent just has us here. But they had to have like triple Wasteland. Triple Force? Triple Wasteland, triple Force, Thoughtseize. Like, our opponent had a lot of stuff, and they had the Baleful Strix at that turn as well. Like, I don't think we should be upset about how this game has turned out given the cards our opponent had access to. Yep, drawing some extra cards. Why not, opponent? They also are sat around with this Brazen Borrower in hand that they bounce as well, which is something we have to then Thoughtseize out of the way. This can block for a turn, and then they can just tap our guy down. So we go and get a Forest here. It's the plays we have, so we're taking them. Counterspell is obviously good here, but we know half of our opponent's hand right now. Okay, so we get the Urborg. So we get to Thoughtseize away our opponent's Brazen Borrower. They obviously still have this Wasteland. Alright. Just going to play the Borrower. What's the last card in hand? It's going to be another Wasteland. It's an island. Okay, so we play this one out. This has to blow up the Kaito. And then we've got a turn to put something together here. I don't know what we can put together. Like, our opponent had 50% more cards than us this game because of the nature of their deck. And they were still like one card away at all times from losing. Which just shows the power of our deck to go into these sorts of strategies. Crop rotation. So we can get a crop rotation, but it's not going to do us any good. Yeah, that was a hard fought one, but it sadly didn't quite get us over the line. So we want Abrupt Decays and we want a Duress here. We don't need a Bojuka Bog. We're boarding in these things, so the Once Upon a Times lose a lot of value, so they go. And then we can shave on a Not of This World. We can shave on Fast Mana. We can shave on Pithing Needle. I don't really like shaving the Pithing Needle here, though. So I think it's either Fast Mana or Not of This World. I'm going to shave on a Spirit Guide here. Now we have more versions of this effect between the Lotus Petals. Alright, I just checked and my recording program crashed partway through that one. I don't know how far through, but I just played against Blue-Black Tempo. Game 1 they had all the things, and then Game 2 they had a similar situation where they managed to get a Harbinger down when we couldn't do any Abrupt Decay stuff. Just in case that didn't go through. Alright, let's go on to round 4 now. We're currently 1 and 2. This hand doesn't really go where we need it to go. We can do better. Okay, this one makes a thing on turn 2. Not a bad place to be. We have a lot of Urborgs. Oops, all Urborgs. Let's have a little free look at the top cards of our library. I guess I'll just have a Hexmage here. If our opponent is some sort of annoying turn 1 combo deck, we probably need to hold up the crop rotation so we can at least get the Bojuka Bog and stop something like an Oops or Spells kill. Getting counter spelled over there, are we? Is that what our opponent wants to do? Just play a Hexmage out. We've got this Spirit Guide. So we could do something in response where we know that Daze isn't going to get us. Alright, we're seeing a white source here. A Swords, 2 Plowshares. Sure, we've got another one of these guys. We're running this out to absorb their removal. The fact that they were so happy to fire off a plow kind of makes me think that they might have more scary white removal. Right, Brainstorm is very good. Right, so some sort of Esper list. A Thoughtseize. Don't like that very much. Let's crop rotation, getting rid of this Urborg, because we have another one. So if this gets stopped, it's not the end of the world. Okay, I'll go and get Dark Depths. So we're going to lose the Hexmage, but this opens us up to a bunch of draws. A little bit cold to the Wasteland here. I'll play this Urborg out. We don't have any Surveil land action that we can reach for. I think the format is just too fast to put Surveil land in this particular deck. If the format slows down a bit, then maybe we can have one Underground Mortuary, I think it is. Teferi, sure. Are they going to cash it in for a card immediately? No. This makes it very hard for us to defend our creature. We can start removing counters from the Dark Depths if we think that's what we should be doing. We could have removed a counter last turn, to be honest. It's just not how these games normally play out. You can see a Brainstorm here, a Ponder, sure. Got 2 damage to you, please, opponent. Cameo, sure. You're on notice. 10 turns, that's all we need. I'll play this thing they know about and continue. I'm just cashing in for a card. That's interesting to me. I guess I know that we can't make a 20/20 because we can't cast any spells that would find the correct land. The Brainstorm, so we're going to see Tamiyo flipped, which can go and get back the Swords to Plowshares, which is not a thing we can beat with what we've got going on right now. I think this game is over already. Alright, Elvish Spirit Guide, it's up to you. You are the hero we need in this hour. Please beat down for 14 damage. Orcish Bonemasters. Surprised they didn't just hold this back. They could have used this as a thing that can block our creature down the line. Our opponent might be on the Esper Stoneblade deck that we played a little while ago on the channel that won a challenge. Like, it's going to be a horrible matchup either way. Like, they've got Hand Disruption, Counter Magic, White Removal spells, and Teferi. That's a lot to get through. And they've even got some sort of incidental blockers like the Tamiyo. It's going to be Stoneforge. Nope, just cracking a clue. An Inquisition of Kozilek. I think we save this for the turn we're actually trying to go off. So this attacks as a 1, 2, so they can double block and we just lose one thing. So I think this is just going to be keeping us alive for a bit longer. We're going to save the Inquisition until we need to resolve a spell and then can pluck a piece of interaction out of our opponent's hand. But if we do it now, we might be like 4 turns before we get to the place we actually need to check the coast is clear. Now Tamiyo is probably just going to win this game in short order. They're going to draw their deck, and that should be enough. I'm not going to bother removing a counter here. This game is going to be over in the next turn cycle. I'm just going to take one more draw and almost certainly scoop it up. I'm going to Inquisitions just to get a bit more information about our opponent's hand. But yeah, Not of This World, not very good with Teferi in play. Just let me see your hand. You can have the game. Just let me see some more information. Yep, okay. Not being that one. Right, that was pretty disgusting. I don't think we need the Bojuka Bogs or the Pithing Needles here. The Pithing Needle can name Teferi, but I don't really want to have to deal with that anyway. So Sylvan Safekeepers and Duress are obvious ones. I'll take another Knot of this World for all their plows and stuff. And then we can sort of miser an Abrupt Decay if we wish. And that looks reasonable. Like, they could have Harbinger of the Seas. It's possible. Maybe we don't need the Ghost Quarter and we just have another Decay. Although we have less lands, which means that our plan for the Sylvan Safekeeper is not always going to get there as much as we would like it to. I think we'll just take out Decay here and just keep. I think I'd rather have a Boseiju than the Ghost Quarter there. Let's try this. Okay, this hand doesn't really go where we need it to go. Let's mulligan. Okay, this one works for me. I think we get rid of this Decay. Thoughtseize. Force of Will, Solitude, Plow, Ketramose. Okay, I don't think Ketramose is great in my experience. So what do we want here? We could take the Solitude. We have to remember this is a Thoughtseize and our other piece of interaction is an Inquisition. So if we take the Solitude, that's one piece of removal. And then we can clean up the next piece of removal using our Inquisition. At some point we might have to worry about the Barragoyf. Gaining life is a bit of a pain. But hopefully we can just make it 2020 on that sort of time scale. Undercity Sewers. So we know they don't have a blue card for this Force of Will this turn. Because we have perfect information. This is very handy for us. They've milled off a Force of Will. A Swamp. I'm going to rotate this away while we have the time to. We know that we're not going to get interfered with. And we'll fire this off. We're going to take that Swords to Plowshares. And then next turn, we can make a 2020. And hopefully that's good enough. They can play the Barragoyf, and then we can make a 2020. A Ponder. This is a very good hit for our opponent. They probably have a deck full of white removal though, so I wouldn't be surprised if something went poorly for us. They chose not to shuffle. That's a sign of strength. Maybe they're encouraging us not to go for it. It's a sneaky little bluff. Sometimes happens. Alright. So if our opponent plays any of these sorcery spells, I'm going to feel pretty good about that. And this Spirit Guide should be enough. Because if they think we're going to crop rotate into an Urborg, maybe they think they've got that covered with a Force of Will and they can just tap out for a guy here. Would love to see them tap all their land. What's the worst that could happen, opponent? I'm just a little guy with some little lands. Nothing to worry about. Alright, we're cracking one of them. Cracking another one of them. So I think our opponent is in a situation where they maybe don't have that much in the way of answers here. And they're just saying, we have to do the thing. And there's a Barragoyf, and that should be the game. Unless they have a Solitude. And then we get to kind of get ruined here. Is that enough, opponent? You got that Solitude? If they let us untap, then they need to have Solitude and another blue card as the two mystery cards in their hand. So we get to bash for 20. Alright, so we got the game there. Can we take the match though? Now we've seen these Barragoyfs, I'm more inclined to have the Abrupt Decays in because our opponent having more life is actually really irritating. How would we fit these in? I like the Once Upon a Times here. They allow us to go a little bit quicker, which is an important thing against what our opponent is putting down. I guess we can take out one Boseiju. Just have a second Abrupt Decay. So we have some stuff here, but I don't think I want it. I'm going to mulligan. Okay, I'll keep this. This is a turn 2, 2020 with an Inquisition. So we Inquisition on 1, turn 2, we turn this into an Urborg, we can shove Hexmage. Now, whether or not we do that depends on what the Inquisition sees, because it might see a whole bunch of stuff that's like, okay, we just can't beat that. Okay. We get to Urborg instead, that's pretty exciting. We now don't have to tutor for it, so we can use our spells here. So we have a Swords to Plowshares, and there is a Solitude over there. Get out of there, Swords to Plowshares. You aren't my friend. Controversial opinion of mine, but I think black should have the best ways of killing creatures. Not white, but maybe that's just me. Alright, so they might just go upstairs straight away with this and try and flip the Tamiyo. So the Brainstorm means that we don't really know what's in our opponent's hand either. And I have to imagine that there's some amount of this Solitude going to be popping off and ruining our day. They can get back the Swords to Plowshares next turn, which is a pain. This probably means that we just kill the Tamiyo, because this is basically another Swords to Plowshares. So we can spend 2 mana here to take a Swords to Plowshares out of our opponent's hand. If they fight over this, then that's something. Alright, let's just shred this now. It gets rid of our opponent's pressure on this game. It means they don't get to buy back any of their spooky things. So maybe they want a cantrip, maybe they just want to plow. We just say no to that. And we get to try again in a minute. Okay, Wasteland. Our opponent's deck has Wastelands in. Yeah, sure. Oh dear, oh dear. Do they have a white card in hand? They must have a white card in hand at this point, surely. Maybe we can try and save this crop rotation for protection, but we're going to have to do a lot of wriggling to get through this one. And every turn that goes by, they get a slightly better hand. They didn't shuffle off that Ponder either. Now they're pondering again. So this might have been a Ponder finding a Ponder. Okay, they've shuffled their library. What do I want to do here? I think I want to Sylvan Scrying. I'm expecting that this Solitude is playable for our opponent. So I don't want to get Solituded. So we just go and get our little Dark Depths here. And then next turn we can have a Vampire Hexmage, we can have the Dark Depths, and we can have a crop rotation. Very surprised to see that our opponents managed to fit some Wastelands in this deck as well. That kind of sucks for us, but there we are. Kind of caught with our trousers down here because we took out our Pithing Needles. They probably don't have the full set of them. They might have some in the board. It could just be like 2 of them. I wouldn't expect to see the full play set, but you never know. Ooh, I like this quite a lot. Alright, let's Inquisition. We're going to see a Brainstorm to protect. We are seeing a Brainstorm to protect. Okay. We're still probably going to be able to take something because the mana costs of our opponent's deck is very low and they've got 4 cards still. Orcish Bowmasters, Teferi, Brainstorm, Force of Will. Okay, I'm going to take this to Teferi because it's the white card. And we deploy this, and if I cast a Sylvan Scrying here, will our opponent do anything about it? Do we get him to Turak off of it? No. So they probably have a Solitude and no white card right now, but they have a Brainstorm, so they can change that. But if they Brainstorm, they don't necessarily have a blue card for their Force of Will. So they're kind of in a little bit of an awkward spot that we've managed to put them in by selecting the right things with our hand disruption. I would say this game has been a pretty good one. There's been some really interesting jostling for position here, instead of just getting like completely wiped like we did before. A bit of fast mana would be interesting, because then we can play out the Hexmage and then still do our thing. Or we can just do our thing holding up crop rotation, but we know crop rotation doesn't work because of Force of Will. I think our opponent's thinking long and hard about whether or not they want to fire off this Brainstorm. So I'm pretty sure we know all the cards in our opponent's hand here. Given the amount of protection we have, or sorry, not the amount of protection, the amount of ability to go again, I think we're just going to send this at end step and just assume that they, well, not assume, but hope they haven't drawn another white card. And we've got Thespian Stage. Let's have that in play as well. What do you have? They have the Solitude. They have a Prismatic Ending. So we can crop rotation to save it. We know our opponent has a Brainstorm over there that they can pitch their Force of Will. So I think the play here is let this happen. Gain a bunch of life. So we're not under any pressure. And then we can cast this Hexmage. Do you want to Force of Will this? We can just be down with this, I guess. I guess they play out the Bowmasters now. That's a bit awkward for us. But if they Bowmaster ping this, we just say no to the Bowmaster. So they don't get a guy here. Yeah, maybe that's a bit loose playing out that guy. I can discard 2 cards to make my opponent discard 2 cards. But we have to give up so much to do that. I think we're just not supposed to play out the Hexmage there. I was trying to bait out a Force of Will, but why would they when we just have this stuff going on and we don't have a Dark Depths? Should have given my opponent more credit. They weren't going to force that. If we can find any other land, then we can just start crop rotating here. Many crop rotations. Unfortunately, we don't have the lands to crop rotate away just yet. There's the Brainstorm from our opponent. Ketramos. How many cards in exile? 1. Okay. I've been very underwhelmed by Ketramos. Now we're going to copy this Bayou so that we have more green mana if we need it. Finally have a Bayou here. So we get to crop rotate and then crop rotate again. So the first one won't work. We know that much. But what about second crop rotation? This is going to get a Force of Will. Oh, it didn't get a Force of Will. If they're not Force of Willing it, what do they have in hand? They probably just have white cards that exile our creature. What would they... Trying to think out what they wouldn't be playing here. They wouldn't be playing out a Solitude. They wouldn't be playing out a Swords to Plowshares. They wouldn't be playing out another Ketramos. Do we go for it here? We can go for it, and if they have a blue card to go with this Force of Will, we're in trouble. We don't need to go right now, do we? We got time here. A Spirit Guide. What does that do for us? That gives us double attempts at crop rotation next turn to keep our creature alive. Because this makes the guy, we end up with 2 lands left over. So this is okay. Now we could stop our opponent drawing a card. Stop our opponent from having... Okay, so now they definitely have a Force of Will. I was going to say, so if they have... If we go in their upkeep, they have 1 fewer cards. Right, we're going to go now. This is our time. We have 2 crop rotations. We know that one of them is getting countered. Well, they let us untap first. That's also big. That gives us more mana. We attack. Do they have anything here? It's possible they have nothing. We can hope. This is going to get countered, presumably. There is the Force of Will. So that gets countered. And then this can happily crop rotate away and get us the Sejiri Steppe. Give our creature pro-white. And then that's the game. That was an awesome game of Magic the Gathering. I think we still have to do it again, don't we? I think that's only game 2. Oh no, it's the match. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, that was a great match of Magic the Gathering. Yeah. I was so into that one, I'd forgotten all the things that had come before. But managing to beat a deck setup like this is kind of hard. But you saw the lengths we went to, and when we're like Thoughtseizing and we're specifically going after white cards because we've seen a Solitude in our opponent's deck, and just working out when we need to go, how much life we have, etc. We have enough time to go twice against this matchup, so we managed to get there. Yeah, that was a sweet game of Magic. All right, we're 2-2, so the positive record is at our fingertips. Let's see if we can grab it. So what does our opener do here? We're putting an awful lot of strain on this Once Upon a Time. I don't think I want to do that. This needs any mana, and we can make a turn 4 with protection. That doesn't feel amazing, does it? Turn 4 with protection. A lot of mana sources change this in a big way. I think we're mulligan. Okay, this is a turn 2. Keep this, get rid of 1 Urborg, that's an easy one. And then we have to make a choice here. Would I like to have this Thespian stage? Or would I like to have a reliable green source of mana? I think it's the reliable green source of mana. Right, we're already down to 5 cards, so we need to be pretty judicious about what we get here. Bloodstained Mire. Okay, we getting bodied or not? Ooh, okay. I guess we are just playing out this Verdant Catacombs. I'm worried our opponent is going to Entomb Reanimate us and just kill us. That's usually what Bloodstained Mire means. I'm just going to be a coward. A Raucous Theatre. Yeah, our opponent might be up to no good here. Thankfully, we have an answer. Burning Wish. Okay, our opponent very much is up to no good. So next turn, we play the Hexmage out, and we have the Spirit Guide crop rotation as like a surprise. That's provided we get a next turn. Now, this is where the Collector Ouphe is useful. We don't have the 3 that I normally have, because I took one out so we had access to Leyline in the Void as a 4 of. Maybe we should have just run Leyline as a 3 of. A Galvanic Relay. Okay, so just a little relay. That's fine. Ritual, Wish, Badlands. Not bad relay, that one. Okay, let's... Ooh, I like a Thoughtseize, don't I? How much do I want to Thoughtseize? Because if we Thoughtseize right now, we obviously have... I'm just trying to work out... So the best thing we can cast here is the Thoughtseize, right? That's going to be better than holding up a Bojuka Bog here. The Burning Wish is really irritating, though. So what we could do is we could go black, black. This becomes a Dark Depths. Then we get to Thoughtseize and play Hexmage. I guess we could Thoughtseize first and then check that the coast is clear for what we were trying to accomplish. And if we don't need this crop rotation for something else. Okay, Beseech the Mirror is a bit of a spooky one for us. And we take the Beseech. Okay, so then we tap this for black. Then we crop rotate away the... It has to be the Catacombs. This gets us the Dark Depths, which taps for black due to our Urborg. We can play out the Hexmage, and then we're ready to rock and roll. Alright, opponent, up to you. Dark Ritual, Burning Wish. You can probably string together something pretty good from that. But I didn't want to give them just an easy graveyard line there. Dark Ritual. Right. Our opponent has a plan. They don't have... Okay, they have blue mana now if they want to gamble for... Well, they can't though because they have a Veil. So there might be a 50-50 if they go for it. Burning Wish. What are you going to reveal to me? Is it just to Beseech the Mirror, just go through the grave line and win? Graveyard line and win? Could well be that. Is this deterministic? I think it might be. So I get to play this and the Ritual, that's 3 mana. And the other Petal, that's 4 mana. Then the Chrome Mox, then the Beseech. And that should be lethal, right? So actually, if we'd have kept the ability to hit their graveyard plan, that would have worked, potentially. But then we'd have to try and find a way to win the game. Because we'd lose our only way of making a 20-20. We probably could have worked out that this was the line our opponent could take. But yeah, they have it here. Alright. Storm. Okay, we don't need to protect our creature. We don't need to Pithing Needle anything. So that gives us a lot of slots to bring in here. I would like access to a Duress. I think the Leylines are interesting as well. The Collector Ouphes are especially good. Now everyone says, why do you have Lotus Petals and Collector Ouphe? Playing this ahead of curve is really important. It messes up 4 cards on our deck, but it messes up many more of our opponents. I'll take that Boseiju, I think. I like the Boseiju because it's a land. Do I like it more than, let's say, an Abrupt Decay? This is easier to cast. We could have some Abrupt Decay just so we can blow up any mana they play out, but I think we're okay with this setup. We have a Leyline that stops the easy graveyard lines. We don't have a route to our own combo, but we do have 2 pieces of disruption for our opponents. This leaves us trying to draw one of 12 cards in our deck to win the game. But we also have 2 Collector Ouphes, so that's 14 cards. So that's 1 in like 4 draws. So in theory, in 4 turns, we can get there. But if we give our opponent enough time, they will win the game. I'm going to keep this. We're going to rely on the top of our deck a little bit. We also have the Once Upon a Times that can dig a little bit. But we shut off the easy turn 1s for our opponent here. We don't have to worry about our opponent messing with our mana, so we can just go and get a nice, delicious Bayou. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent, and then we can Inquisition later. What does this do? Lines Eye Diamond, Lines Eye Diamond, Lines Eye Diamond, Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal. That's a lot, isn't it? I guess we take the Lotus Petal here. Just make it harder for them to have any mana. That is a weird hand. That is a weird hand. So these Chrome Moxes can't imprint anything. They can be played out as zeros. So they got a Surveil land somewhere in their midst over there. And Urborg. Are we doing Urborg stuff? We could play out an Elvish Spirit Guide and start beating down. That is the thing that we're allowed to do. Is that the right play? It might be. Alright, I'm going to play out an Elvish Spirit Guide and start beating down. Our opponent's hand looks pretty soft. And the Lion's Eye Diamonds are a lot worse when we have the Leyline in the Void around. So they're going to go get a Surveil land here. They're going to Surveil something into the Void that they don't want. This looks like a Jund build because we're seeing Raucous Theatre, which isn't stock for the blue build. But they must have an Echo of Eons in there. We've seen the Gamble as well. But you're not really casting it, so they might not have much in the way of blue mana for it. Alright. Okay, we get our Dark Depths down here. We get to beat for a little bit. So by playing out the Spirit Guide, we actually we made our clock slower by a turn. But I will take a Thoughtseize now. See if our opponent has any action. A Dark Ritual. I will take the Dark Ritual. That's the easiest way they can turn any of these like Chrome Moxes into something useful. Play out an Urborg. Crack for 2. If we die now because we gave our opponent 1 turn by playing out his Elvish Spirit Guide, I'm going to feel bad. But what 2 cards do you add to this pile to win the game? Dark Ritual, Beseech the Mirror. that doesn't really... I guess it gives you a load of mana, right? You'd have 9 mana after your Beseech resolves. But what do you get in that case? Burning Wish, and then you peer into the abyss. Alright, so they are just dead, right? Now passing to my turn. This isn't a deck that does much instant speed. Can I attack for 22? We can. Alright, game 3. Don't want to do anything differently. We could try and smash some stuff up with the Abrupt Decays. Maybe that's better than a Boseiju. Boseiju is easier to cast, but this does give them mana back because they can get any land with a basic land type. Alright, let's try this. Just have a nice turn 1. We haven't had a turn 1 all day. I like having 2 pieces of disruption. That is handy. How useful is this once upon a time? Right, we have stronger hands than this. I think we can do better. This is the turn 2. We have the graveyard line covered. I think we keep this. And let me probably get rid of the Boseiju here. Wooded Foothills. Like, if they just turn 1 us, then there's nothing we can do about that. These decks don't often turn 1. They're more like a turn 2 to 3 sort of combo deck. But it's certainly possible. Right, they are casting a Burning Wish. 2 cards left in their hand. Have they got an Echo in the sideboard they're going for here? Or is this going to be a Beseech line? It's a Thoughtseize. Okay. An Inquisition of Kozilek is probably where I want to start this one off. What do they have here? A Thoughtseize, a Tendrils of Agony, a Burning Wish. Okay, I'm just going to take the Thoughtseize here. Our opponent's hand looks very poor to me. Would love to find a piece of fast mana so we can hold up this crop rotation and deploy our Hexmage. So that's 8 draws in our deck that do that for us. Obviously, if we draw a Collector Ouphe, then I probably just snap that off because that just means our opponent probably can't go off next turn at all. Whereas if we just make a 20-20, maybe they can just go off. So we slow ourselves down, but we slow them down by more turns than we're slowing ourselves down. Okay, we might be taking a wheel here. So they can go and get the Burning Wish going here. This could be a disaster for us, to be honest. So here's a Burning Wish. So they've got an Echo of Eons. Or they're going for a Beseech the Mirror line. Okay, maybe they don't have Echo at all. Is this just a clean win here? So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. This taps for 3 mana. They've got Storm 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, this is just clean, right? They don't even have to cast the Beseech. They Beseech into a Dark Ritual and then go. So if we'd have kept our... I guess if we'd have not Inquisition them, they would have Thoughtseized us anyway. So we didn't really have a good line that beat that. Yep, and they just cast the Beseech from the graveyard. Yeah, our opponent had to top deck the Lion's Eye Diamond for that to work for them. But it is what it is. Alright. I think that's the first time I've lost to like an artifact-y Storm deck like that for a long time, actually. The one time we take the 3rd Collector Ouphe out of the sideboard. Alright, so a 2 and 3 is a very poor record for this deck. I snap off a lot of 4-1s in my own time with this deck. And the odd 3-2 as well. I find this is quite a difficult deck to trophy with, though. Anyway, let's talk about the list and how it felt today. So, lately, just when I've been playing Legacy in general, there's been lots and lots of graveyard decks, like the Dredges and things like that. So, having Leyline in the Void is really useful for those. And it does stop some of the Beseech lines our opponent had in that last game. I don't think we need 4, though. I think we could just run 3 and have the 3rd Collector Ouphe. I think having Collector Ouphes is a bigger hit because we have the Once Upon a Times. We already have Graveyard Hate in the form of the 4 crop rotations that can find the Bojuka Bog, and sometimes Sylvan Scrying for a Bojuka Bog against a Dredge deck is fine. If they fill up their graveyard a bunch, you just use some fast mana, Sylvan Scrying, go and get the Bojuka Bog, take them out. So maybe just 3 Leyline is fine and get us back the 3rd Collector Ouphe just for those sorts of matchups, because this completely changes the matchup. Like Storm, like those sorts of Epic Storm and Epic Storm adjacent lists pretty much can't win through Collector Ouphe. It's really hard for them. And we certainly can pose a good enough clock. So if we just had another one of those, maybe we're more likely to find it in that matchup. Now, sure, we lost to a fringe matchup in Storm there. Maybe we shouldn't be retooling everything to try and deal with that. But nevertheless, I think it's worth talking about the impact of the changes we made. Now, we didn't play against the Ouphes, we didn't play against the Dredge, we didn't really get the value out of the Leyline. Obviously, it was still fine in that last matchup. As for the deck as a whole, I'm pretty happy with it still. The fact that we managed to grind through that white control deck was really cool. That was a sweet match, and that was pretty tasty. We got a bit crushed by the blue-black tempo deck. I don't know how much of that has actually made it through to the recording, because I didn't check. I just carried on recording with a new file. But nevertheless, I think we have some really good matchups in the meta and some not so good matchups. So things like blue-black Reanimator, blue-red Delver, mono-red Prison, mono-red Painter. You know, there's a lot of decks floating to the top of the mana that are pretty good against. Sorry, top of the meta that are pretty good against. But there are a lot more people trying out some white control decks because people just know that Source to Plowshares is a piece of removal that you need a lot. And with that card indexing a little bit higher, it gets a little bit scarier to be Usher at the moment. And, you know, there are a lot of combo decks, and there's only so much you can tech into combo decks for. Like, if there were only graveyard combo decks, then fine. But in fact, there are graveyard combo decks that can go under us, but then there's also these artifact combo decks that can go under us. And there's only so many spaces in our sideboard. I do like having the Duress. I could certainly see playing more Duresses. I've definitely played builds with 8 Duresses, or Duress effects in the main and the sideboard. Even in the main, I've played 8 Duresses before. That's what you get if you cut the Once Upon a Times. Maybe we're going to have to go back to that and just have more generically good disruption, and then we can work our way through that way. But, you know, I did showcase Once Upon a Time a few times where, you know, we had like a turn 3-ish kill, turn 3 to 2020, but then our turn 1 Once Upon a Time sped that up to a turn 2. And, you know, little things like that are why I like the Once Upon a Time, because it gives us a little bit more speed against a meta that is generally pretty fast at the moment. So if you want to see any thoughts about this deck, by all means check out my Patreon. Please remember to like and subscribe. And with that, goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.